Language. Language.
How many languages do you speak?
One of the best-known poems in the English language.
The origins of language.
The letter was written in complicated legal language. The expression is mainly used in written language. He is able to explain complicated ideas in simple everyday language.
The plays are full of old-fashioned poetic language.
The language of science.
A programming language for the web.
The language of bees.
The language of dolphins.
Language laboratory.
Language laboratory.
Languid.
Languid.
He greeted Charles with a languid wave of his hand.
We spent a languid afternoon by the pool.
Languish.
Languish.
Shaw languished in jail for 15 years.
The housing market continues to languish.
The shares are languishing at just 46p after yesterday's fall. The shares are languishing at just 46p after yesterday's fall.
West Ham United are currently languishing at the bottom of the league.
Languor.
Languor.
Lying there beside her, he was filled with an agreeable languor. Lying there beside her, he was filled with an agreeable languor.
The languor of a hot afternoon.
Lank.
Lank.
Lanky.
Lanky.
A lanky young man.
Lanolin.
Lanolin.
Lantern.
Lantern.
Lanyard.
Lanyard.
Lap.
Lap.
Shannon sat on her mother's lap. His hands were folded in his lap.
Rubens Barrichello finished a lap ahead of his teammate. Rubens Barrichello finished a lap ahead of his teammate. The entire team took a victory lap in front of their cheering fans.
Every morning she swims 50 laps in the pool. Every morning she swims 50 laps in the pool. The last lap of their journey was by ship.
She wasn't used to living in the lap of luxury.
The waves lapped gently against the rocks.
The tide was lapping the harbour wall.
Eric Gomas spun off the track when trying to lap Andrew Scott. Eric Gomas spun off the track when trying to lap Andrew Scott.
She could hear the soft lapping of the sea.
She's lapping up all the attention she's getting. She's lapping up all the attention she's getting.
The humour was lapped up by an appreciative crowd. The humour was lapped up by an appreciative crowd.
The cat began to lap up the milk.
Laparoscopy.
Laparoscopy.
Lap dancing.
Lap dancing.
Lapdog.
Lapdog. Lapel.
Lapel.
Lapidary.
Lapidary.
The lapidary style of the poem.
Lapis lazuli.
Lapis lazuli.
Lappy.
Lappy.
Laps.
Laps.
Despite the occasional lapse, this was a fine performance by the young saxophonist. Despite the occasional lapse, this was a fine performance by the young saxophonist.
A defensive lapse by Keown allowed Tottenham to score.
Lapses in security.
A single lapse of concentration cost Sampras the game.
A lapse of judgment.
After taking the drug, several patients suffered memory lapses.
He forgot to offer Darren a drink, but Marie did not appear to notice the lapse. He forgot to offer Darren a drink, but Marie did not appear to notice the lapse.
The usual time lapse between request and delivery is 2 days.
A lapse of about 10 seconds.
The conversation lapsed.
Your booking will automatically lapse unless you confirm it.
Those people who have lapsed from the practice of their religion. Those people who have lapsed from the practice of their religion.
Many years had lapsed since her first visit to Wexford.
He lapsed into a coma and died 2 days later.
Alison lapsed into puzzled silence.
She lapsed back into her old ways.
Occasionally, he lapsed into his native German.
Following his death, the empire lapsed into chaos.
His poetry often lapses into sentimentality.
Lapsed.
Lapsed.
A lapsed Catholic.
Laptop.
Laptop.
Lapwing.
Lapwing.
Larceny.
Larceny.
Larch.
Larch.
Lard.
Lard.
A speech larded with biblical quotations.
Lardass.
Lardass.
Larder.
Larder.
Large.
Large.
Los Angeles is the second largest city in the U.S. The T-shirt comes in small, medium, and large.
A large oven-proof pan. A large oven-proof pan.
Large sums of money. Those who drink large amounts of coffee.
A large number of students have signed up for the course.
The escaped prisoners are still at large.
The chemical pollution poses a threat to the population at large.
The book helps to explain the larger picture in the Middle East. Their success was due in large part to their ability to speak Spanish.
I turned a corner and there was Joe, as large as life.
Charities, by and large, do not pay tax.
Here's a picture of us larging it up in Brighton last summer. Here's a picture of us larging it up in Brighton last summer.
Large intestine.
Large intestine.
Largely.
Largely.
The state of Nevada is largely desert.
It had been a tiring day, largely because of all the tedious waiting.
Large scale.
Large scale.
A large-scale rescue operation.
Largesse.
Largesse.
Largish.
Largish.
Largo.
Largo.
Lariat.
Lariat.
Lark.
Lark.
I only went along for a lark.
Salad again. How long are you going to keep up this healthy eating lark?
A couple of boys were larking about in the pool. A couple of boys were larking about in the pool.
Lava.
Larva.
Laryngitis.
Laryngitis.
Larynx.
Larynx.
Lasagna.
Lasagna.
Lascivious.
Lascivious.
A lascivious wink.
Laser.
Laser.
Laser surgery.
Laser disc.
Laser disc.
Laser pointer.
Laser pointer.
Laser printer.
Laser printer.
Lash.
Lash.
The oars were lashed to the sides of the boat. The oars were lashed to the sides of the boat.
Giant waves lashed the sea wall.
The wind lashed violently against the door.
Oliver lashed the horses to go faster.
Democrats lashed Republican plans, calling them extreme.
Gallins lashed back at those who accused him of corruption. Gallins lashed back at those who accused him of corruption.
Olsen lashed out at the media.
She would suddenly lash out at other children.
They were each given 50 lashes.
With a lash of its tail, the lion sprang at its prey. With a lash of its tail, the lion sprang at its prey.
We went out on the lash last night. We went out on the lash last night.
Lashing.
Lashing. Apple pie with lashings of cream.
Lass.
Lass.
Lassitude.
Lassitude.
Lasso. Lasso. Last.
Last.
I hadn't seen him since the last meeting.
Did you see the game on TV last night? The law was passed last August.
Interest in golf has grown rapidly in the last 10 years.
Things have changed since the last time you were here.
I didn't read the last chapter of the book.
The next meeting will be held in the last week in June.
Anna was the last person to see him alive.
On the last but one day of his trial.
The second to last paragraph.
Can I have the last piece of cake?
All the money was gone, every last penny of it.
Travellers will find it hard to get a hotel room at the last minute.
He never makes a decision until almost the last moment. She's the last person I'd expect to meet in a disco.
Money was the last thing I cared about right now.
The last thing she needed was for me to start crying too. The last thing she needed was for me to start crying too.
He'd broken his promise again, and it was the last straw.
Take a couple of these pills last thing at night to help you sleep. Take a couple of these pills last thing at night to help you sleep.
Sarah looks as if she's on her last legs.
The car's on its last legs.
It's the last word in luxury holidays.
When I last saw her, she was working in New York.
Who is speaking last?
Add the flower last.
Last of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming.
Last but not least, let me introduce Jane, our new secretary.
I think this box is the last.
He was the first to arrive and the last to leave.
At last it was time to leave.
We reached the summit at last.
I sent the letter off the week before last.
John ate the last of the bread at lunchtime.
We haven't heard the last of football violence.
If my mother sees me, I'll never hear the last of this.
The last I heard, she was at college studying law.
He died in 1987, insisting to the last he was innocent.
The hot weather lasted for the whole month of June.
Each lesson lasts an hour. The ceasefire didn't last long.
Cut flowers will last longer if you put flower food in the water.
They won't be able to last much longer without fresh supplies. If you go into the job with that attitude, you won't last long.
She feared she might not be able to last out the afternoon court without fainting.
The batteries should last for 20 hours playing time.
We only had $50 to last us the rest of the month.
They won't be able to last much longer without fresh supplies. If you go into the job with that attitude, you won't last long.
She feared she might not be able to last out the afternoon court without fainting.
The batteries should last for 20 hours playing time.
We only had $50 to last us the rest of the month. Last call.
Last call.
Last ditch.
Last ditch.
The negotiators made a last-ditch effort to reach an agreement.
Last hurrah.
Last hurrah.
He's made it clear that this Olympics, his third, will be his last. Hurrah!
Lasting.
Lasting.
The reforms will bring lasting benefits.
Their generosity made a lasting impression on me. A solution that would bring lasting peace.
Last judgment.
Last judgment.
Lastly.
Lastly.
Lastly, could I ask all of you to keep this information secret?
Last minute.
Last minute.
A few last-minute changes to the script.
Last name.
Last name.
The last night of the proms.
The last night of the proms.
Last orders.
Last orders.
Last post.
Last post.
Last rites.
Last rites.
Latch.
Latch.
Gwen lifted the latch and opened the gate.
Ray went out, leaving the door on the latch. He's so thick it took him ages to latch on.
Don't just latch on to the latest management fads. Don't just latch on to the latest management fads.
He latched on to Sandy at the party and wouldn't go away.
A baby latching onto its mother's breast.
Latchkey.
Latchkey.
Late.
Late.
Sorry I'm late. I overslept. You're half an hour late.
The train was even later than usual.
We apologize for the late departure of flight AZ709.
There are penalties if loan repayments are late. There are penalties if loan repayments are late.
Cheryl was late for school.
We've never been late with the rent. We've never been late with the rent.
Paul's in his late 40s.
A late 18th century building.
In the late 1980s.
By late afternoon, she had done 10 drawings.
He shouted a warning, but it was too late.
Are we too late to get tickets?
It was too late to turn back.
A late breakfast. The harvest was late this year because of the rain.
She looked tired. Too many late nights.
The late movie.
It's late. I'd better go home.
Mrs. Moore's late husband.
It's a bit late in the day to start having objections.
Billy Hicks, late of this parish.
Penalties for lateness at work.
Despite the lateness of the hour.
The stores are open later on Thursdays.
Ellen has to work late tonight.
Can you stay late?
The bus came 10 minutes late.
The advice came too late.
The wedding took place late in May.
It was not a place to walk in late at night.
Capital punishment was still used in Britain as late as the 1950s.
Birth rates have gone down of late.
Late breaking.
Late breaking.
Latecomer.
Latecomer.
Lately.
Lately.
What have you been doing lately?
Lately, I've had trouble sleeping.
Late night.
Late night.
Late night television.
Late night shopping.
Latent.
Latent.
The virus remains latent in the body for many years.
Latent aggression.
Later.
Later.
I'm going out for a bit. I'll see you later.
He became senator 2 years later.
The baby died later that night.
The dentist could fit you in later in the week.
I can't eat all of this. I'll finish it later on.
Completed entry forms should arrive not later than the 31st of July.
The role of marketing is dealt with in a later chapter.
The launch was postponed to a later date.
The engine has been greatly improved in later models.
Using a sunscreen when you are young helps you to have healthy skin in later years.
Lateral.
Lateral.
The wall is weak and requires lateral support.
Employees can expect lateral moves to different departments to gain experience.
Lateral thinking.
Lateral thinking.
Laters.
Laters.
Latest.
Latest.
All the latest gossip.
His latest film is one of the funniest he's ever made.
Wednesday's session was the latest in a series of planning meetings. Wednesday's session was the latest in a series of planning meetings.
Using the latest in medical technology.
I should be back by 11 o'clock at the latest. I should be back by 11 o'clock at the latest.
Latex.
Latex.
A doctor's latex gloves.
Laugh.
Laugh.
Lathe.
Lathe.
Lather.
Lather.
By the time Alan called, Jody had worked herself into a lather.
He was in a lather of anticipation.
This soap lathers really well.
Latin.
Latin.
A Latin inscription.
Latin music.
Latina.
Latina.
Latin America.
Latin America.
Latino.
Latino.
Latino culture.
Latitude.
Latitude.
The birds breed in northern latitudes.
The planet's southernmost latitudes.
Pupils enjoy considerable latitude in deciding what they want to study.
Employees should have some latitude in organizing their work.
Latrine.
Latrine.
Latte.
Latte.
Latter.
Ladder.
Where unemployment and crime are high, it can be assumed that the latter is due to the former.
In the latter case, buyers pay a 15% commission. In the latter case, buyers pay a 15% commission.
Celebrations are planned for the latter part of November. Celebrations are planned for the latter part of November.
Latter day.
Latter day.
He ruled his business empire like a latter-day czar.
Latter-day students could never meet the college entrance standards required in the 1940s.
Latterly.
Latterly.
Scientists have studied the moon through telescopes and latterly from satellites.
O'Rourke retired after a 15-year career with the company, latterly as chief executive.
Lattice.
Lattice.
Lattice window.
Lattice window.
Lord.
Laud.
Laudable.
Laudable.
A laudable attempt.
Laudanum.
Laudanum.
Laudatory.
Laudatory.
A laudatory biography.
Laugh.
Laugh.
Maria looked at him and laughed.
I didn't know what I was doing, she said, laughing at the memory.
Tony was laughing so hard he had to steady himself on the table.
Nora laughed so much that she nearly cried. Nora laughed so much that she nearly cried.
The kids tumbled around on the floor, laughing hysterically. The kids tumbled around on the floor, laughing hysterically.
He couldn't help it. He burst out laughing.
He's one of the few writers who can make me laugh out loud.
You look ridiculous, Nick laughed. And when I couldn't find the passports, honestly, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry.
Can you finish this by tomorrow? Don't make me laugh. It's no laughing matter having to walk by a group of rowdy drunks every night just to get home.
We can't propose that. We'd be laughed out of court.
Well, they paid me, didn't they? So I'm laughing.
I told my sister what I thought, and she just laughed in my face. I'm afraid the other kids will laugh at me because I don't understand. Young offenders just laugh at this sort of sentence.
Knox laughed off rumors that he would be running for mayor. Knox laughed off rumors that he would be running for mayor.
He gave a short laugh.
What a mess, she said with a laugh. We all went to the beach last night. It was a really good laugh.
The other campers were nice, and we had a great laugh together.
It was a great holiday with lots of laughs.
I like Peter. He's a good laugh.
We took the hot air balloon ride, just for laughs. Me? Star in a film? That's a laugh.
Men make jokes about women drivers, but women have the last laugh. Their insurance rates are cheaper. Men make jokes about women drivers, but women have the last laugh. Their insurance rates are cheaper.